Believe it or not, MLA style is flexible. It allows you to record key information as you prepare your paper. Depending on what you are writing, the sequence of features in the list of works cited may vary. Thus, it is not a good idea to rely on a computer program or an app to generate your works cited list. To begin, on the page, on a new page, you're going to center the words works cited on the page after the end of your paper. You're going to double space between the title and the first entry, and then double space the entire list, both between and within entries. You're going to arrange your entries in alphabetical order by author's last name. If you use an anonymous source, you're going to alphabetize by title, ignoring words like an, and the. If you have two or more works by the same author, give the name for the first entry only. For the second one, type 3 hyphens followed by a period, and then proceed as usual. Let's see how that would look. If I'm quoting two of Jane Austen's novels, Northanger Abbey and Pride and Prejudice, on my list of works cited, I would begin with the first one, Austen, Jane, and then the title, and then I'd proceed with the citation, but for purposes of time, I'm going to skip that now. And then for the second one, I would do 3 hyphens, followed by a period, and then I would type the second title. Now, it looks a little weird, but that's the way it's done. Okay, now when you are giving a date of publication, you give the day, the month, and the year. Now, the month is always abbreviated except for May, June, and July. I forgot July on there. So let's see how that would look. If we had these dates right here, September 9th, 2004, this is how it would look if you were citing it on your works cited page. 9 Sept 2004. Notice there are no commas. Well, there should be a space there. April 1st would be 1 April 1554. And then May 14th would be 14 May. Notice that's not abbreviated. And that's how those would look. Okay, now there's information that needs to appear on every works cited entry, and those bits of information are arranged as follows. Every cite must include the author's last name and the first name, followed by a period. You're going to omit titles of individuals, but you will include middle initials if the author uses them. Let's look at a couple of examples. So Jane Austen's name would appear as such. Austen, Jane. F. Scott Fitzgerald. There we've got someone with an initial. Fitzgerald, F. Scott. Edgar Allan Poe. We get the whole last name with Poe. Whoops. And then Gerard Manley Hopkins, a great Jesuit poet. Hopkins. Gerard Manley. So we're omitting the title. Okay. After you give the title, the author's name, you're going to give the title of the work, the piece of literature, followed by a period. Then you're going to give the city of publication, followed by a colon. The publisher's name that appears on the title page, followed by a comma. The year of publication, followed by a period. The medium of publication, followed by a period. I forgot the period there. Okay? The things listed here are just the basics. You need to figure out what type of publication you are quoting and then add additional information as necessary. In the videos on periodicals, journals, and web publications, I go into detail about creating works cited entries. Here we are dealing with the basics only. So on my list of works cited for Rocket Boys, an entry for Rocket Boys would look like this. Let's go down here, start a new one. I would begin with the author's last name, Hickam, and then his first name, and he doesn't give a middle initial. or it does. He gives H and then a period. Then we have the title of the piece of work in italics. I hope it's not Ricket Boys. That would be unhappy. Rocket Boys, period. And then I would give the city of publication, New York, followed by a colon. Publishing company was Delta, comma, and the year of publication was 1998. And of course it was a print publication. So that's what my works cited would look like for Homer Hickham's novel Rocket Boys. And of course we have the hanging indent. When I'm citing something that lists an editor, translator, or compiler, I need to include that information as well after the title. This usually happens when you have an old text such as Shakespeare or Homer. Let's look at what it might look like. So if I had an editor, after the title I would type ed, period, and then the name with the first name and then the last name. If I had a translator, I would do trans plus the name. Whoops. And if I had a compiler, I would do comp plus the name. So if I were citing my copy of The Merchant of Venice, it would look like this. You begin with the author's name, Shakespeare, comma, William, period. Then the title of the work, The Merchant of Venice. And then it has two editors, Barbara Mowat and Paul Werstein. Whoops. And then I would type that in, followed by ed, period, Barbara Mowat and Paul Werstein. Then I would include the city of publication, the publishing house, Washington Square. You abbreviate press with a P, comma, the year of publication, 1992, and print. And that is how it would look, assuming I had my hanging indent all set up. So far so good. Now let's talk about a piece of literature that appears in a collection or an anthology. We've got a little bit of extra information here that we need to identify. So let's say I'm quoting John McCrae's poem In Flanders Fields, and I need to include it on my list of works cited. I read the poem in a book called A Corner of a Foreign Field. So let's see how my entry would look. I'd of course begin with McCrae's name, last name, and then the first, followed by a period, and then the title of the work. Because it's a poem, we put it in quotation marks with a period inside the quotes. Then I would include the title of the anthology. This is where we differ from what I just previously did. Then we would include the editor, the translator, or the compiler. This is also a change from what we just did. City of publication with a colon, the publisher's name, and followed by a comma, the year of publication with a period, and then the medium of publication. So let's see how that would look if we were to type it out. So McCrae, John, in Flanders Fields. There's the title, and then this came from A Corner of a Foreign Field. The illustrated, long title here, Poetry of the First World War. Okay, so there's my title, the title of the anthology, and this was compiled by a woman named Fiona Waters, excuse me. Sorry, Fiona. And it was done in Hertfordshire, and the publisher was Transatlantic. And it was 2007 print. And of course that is, hopefully that would all be on one page. And so that's how that looks. We've got the the individual piece of literature, and then we have the anthology, and we've included in this case, the compiler's name right there. Not that challenging. Okay, now when you find something like a poem on the web, you need to include a couple different pieces of information. Of course, you always include the author's last name and then the first name, then the title in quotation marks, the title of the site in italics, the publisher or the sponsor of the site. If there is none given, you use capital N, lowercase p, and you eliminate the city of publication. You also eliminate the publisher's name from the title page. Then you give the date of the publication, and if none is available, you use N period D period. The medium of publication, in this case the web, and then the date of access. So let's take a look at this web page. So here I have found the poem In Flanders Fields on this web page. I know it's by John McCrae, so I've got my author, I've got my title, I've got the title of the site, The Great War, 1914 to 1918. The sponsor of the site, I was tooling around here earlier and I could not find the sponsor of the site. It seems to be the same people that that title the site. So we're not going to have that. The date of publication, well, this was first published May of 1915, but that's not when it was published on this web page, so I don't have that either. The medium of publication is the web, and the date of access is whenever you access it. So how would this look? Alright, I would have McCrae's name, as usual, provided I could spell it, In Flanders Fields. Holy smokes. And then I found that on a website called The Great War, 1914 to 1918. There was no publisher listed, so that's going to be italics. And there was also no date listed, so N period, D period. And it was published on the web, and I accessed it on August 11th, 2015. So the hanging indent is, with my hanging indent, this is how it looks. There you go. And now, through the magic of word processing, I will show you what a completed Works Cited page looks like. So here's my page. I've got Works Cited centered at the top of the page. You'll notice the spacing. Nothing slick here. Everything's alphabetized by author's name. So Hickam, McCrae, a second thing by McCrae, assuming that I had a separate poem, and then Shakespeare. So that's how it looks.